Hello, Mark Conlock, Director of Horticulture here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. Usually I'm doing Mondays with Mark, but it is a Wednesday, and I'm here with Chip, our Education Coordinator at Green Bay Botanical Garden. So we're going to talk about some of the sustainable practices that we do here at Green Bay Botanical Garden. Over the last 25 years, we have learned quite a bit. We have incorporated a lot of different things throughout the years to make our garden more sustainable, more environmentally friendly. So Chip has a few things he's learned about on tours that he wants to ask about.
Yeah, Mark, so whenever I'm giving an adult tour or a family tour, I get pretty repetitive questions every time I'm giving those tours. And really three big ones stick out. A lot of times I hear, how do we water here? How do we weed? And how do we fertilize? So I'm hoping we can talk about those three things.
But of course. Yes, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah, so the first thing we'll talk about is watering. So we have this bed here in front of the well house with our 25 logo, 25 anniversary here at the Botanical Garden. So one of the ways we water is actually with these wands here. Chip, if you want to look that guy up.
Sure.
So we do a lot of hand watering of the annual beds. And we don't, first of all, we don't water our perennials, trees, and shrubs after the first year. The first year we water them to get established, and then we never really water them again. So that's one thing we don't water. Second thing is the annual plantings we water with a wand, and that allows us to put the right amount of water by the different kinds of plants. So some plants, like this helichrysum here, the silver foliage plants, typically don't need a lot of water. So we really haven't had to ever water that part of this display bed. But then certain things like petunias do like, moisture, fertility, and things like that, so those might require more moisture. So the wand, even though it's more time consuming, sometimes we do water about 100 hours a week with all of our interns and our staff members. It allows us to use the right amount of water, which allows us to use less water in general. And we also don't have an automatic system, that's always watering the bed whether it rains or not. So, you didn't ask it, but
I got a question for you before we move on.
yes.
So if I'm watering at home with the wand here like this, what do I got to keep in mind? Do you want me to, do I get down in there? Do I want to water top to bottom? Is there anything that I want to keep in mind when I'm watering at home?
Good question. Yes, sir. Yeah, you don't usually want to water over the top of your plants if you can avoid it, because that, has moisture on the leaves, and the moisture on the leaves leads to like a humid environment that can have more disease incidents set up. So you want to water the ground. So a lot of times we like to put that wand through the plants into the ground, because plants only take up water through their root system, so you really need to get the water to the root. Sometimes overhead watering too like that, the moisture might not get down to the root zone as well. And on a bed like this at an angle, you might want to kind of water from the top down and let it trickle down, and you'll kind of be double watering some of the stuff as gravity takes it down that way.
Okay, sweet.
But yeah, you definitely don't water overhead like you see sometimes in commercials.
So don't make yourself a shower faucet.
No. I mean, sometimes it's hard not to do it like that, but try not to.
All right.
But the other thing I was going to mention, Chip, is like for our turf grass areas, those are areas that we do have automatic irrigation on. And we have different rain gauges. This one actually has little leather straps that, expand and contract based on what you set it at. But most of ours are like a little cup that collects rainwater, and it has a sensor there that goes to our irrigation controllers, and we can set it, like if we get a 1/3 inch of rain or something like that, it will bypass it and it won't go on. So we're not wasting water watering after it just rained. So that's a way that we've saved quite a bit of water once we hooked up rain gauges to all of our turf irrigation systems.
Okay. What's a nice alternative to the turf grass that we see out here? Any suggestions on that if people don't want to be watering lawns as much?
Yeah, well, we use a lot of, we don't use a lot, but we use some no-mow turf grass mix. It's from Prairie Nursery. There's like an eco-turf from Prairie Moon Nursery, so you can consider transitioning some to those fescues, which only need to be mowed maybe once or twice, so you're saving, fuel and carbon dioxide emissions, and you don't really need to water them or take care of them too much. So we have some of that we transitioned by the loose house this year, and in our parking lot area, we call it the horseshoe bed, and then we have another area that's been that for a number of years, so that's one thing to consider doing.
Sweet.
Yep.
This looks pretty fancy too. It looks like a little laser gun.
Yeah, or a little hair dryer.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so what's next here?
Well, another thing you can do to hold moisture in the soil in the planting bed is to mulch. So we typically use an organic mulch like this shredded hardwood mulch. And you want to do about 2 to 3 inches of mulch in the bed to make a difference, because it also can exclude light, so it reduces weeds that you'll get, and then it also holds the moisture that either God gave us through rain, or that you watered it with a wand. It'll hold it in the soil longer, so it's there for the plants, and you don't have to water so often. One thing is, though, you don't want that mulch up against your plants, because again, it holds the moisture near the plant tissue that can cause it to rot or to have disease incidence right by the plant. So you have to kind of, we call it hand scooching. Our interns usually get their certificate in scoochology as they're going out there, because it is a little tedious to do it around all those plants.
So if I'm putting mulch in this bed here, how high up do I want to go? And am I clearing it each year, or can I just let it settle before the next year?
Yeah, we try to do, like I said, the 2 or 3 inches maybe, but
Okay.
sometimes it's a little challenging. Like, you don't want it to run off. I mean, so talk about what we do is like we'll pull all these annuals out in the fall and then plant our bulbs. So we kind of pull that out and it gets a little bit mixed up around, and then we dig it in slightly when we're planting our bulbs, which you don't really want to incorporate your mulch, because it can lead to a little bit of a nitrogen deficiency if it's like incorporated as the microorganisms break down that mulch. So you really want it to be a top like layer of mulch on top of it.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So what was our other question?
Our other question was about how we fertilize here, how we add nutrients into the bed, stuff like that.
Yes, that's a good question. Well, often back in the day when I first started, we would do 10-10-10 and Milorganite and get a half a pound of nitrogen per 100 square feet from those fertilizers. Well, what we started doing is we switched our rose fertilizing regime to a compost, activated compost from Purple Cow Organics, which is in the Madison area, and Sustain, which is a composted turkey litter product. So we mix these 1-to-1 to fertilize our roses. So then we started switching our annual beds to this organic fertilizer regime too. So, the first year it takes it a while to break down. So like your first year you might not get the best results. But then, as these slow release organics break down over time, you'll get the nutrients there that you need. It's a little weird, like with our annuals and bulbs, we're like cropping. It's like a farmer almost, but instead of, like corn and soybean rotation, we have an annual and a bulb rotation. So we're always taking nutrients out of the soil as we pull those plants out. So we do have to replenish, our nutrients. The other thing we do is with the wand that you had with the hose, we would fertilize with Miracle Grow on a bi-weekly basis. And this year we switched to using this OMRI certified organic Miracle Grow product. So we did notice that our plants weren't maybe as happy as with the other Miracle Grow, but we're hoping that as that builds up in the soil over time, as we switch to that organic product, it'll make a difference in the next couple of years. So we're trying to switch our regimes of everything to be more sustainable and more organic at time at Green Bay Botanical Garden, to be better stewards of the environment.
Awesome. So if you come to the garden and it smells like Thanksgiving dinner, is this the culprit?
Yeah, it is, man. This thing totally smells like turkey. I don't know if it smells like Thanksgiving dinner, but it definitely smells like a turkey in some form fashion.
There we go.
Yeah. It's a little bit nasty. Weeding.
All right. Yeah. Also, so we get a lot of questions on weeding too.
Yes, and we had our weeders over here. If Rachel wants to pan over it, but we do a lot of hand weeding, just like the watering is done by hand. We have our soil knives, and you can kind of see that pink thing in Lindsay's pocket. Or for bigger weeds, we use shovels and things like that. But we do go through with our volunteers who make a huge difference in us being able to take care of this garden, our staff and our interns, and we'll go through and hand weed everything out. Sometimes we do have to use a glyphosate product of an herbicide like on larger areas, but in general we try to hand weed everything. So again, a lot of time-consuming labor, but that's what allows us to keep it looking good and not use chemicals.
Sure. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Mark. Those are, like I said, the biggest questions that I get on tours. But there's also something else that we wanted to talk about regarding sustainability, because we want to, like you said, we're shifting towards sustainability and a little bit more like organic focus, a little bit more environmentally friendly focus. Yeah. So you have something to show us about how you preserve sometimes, often, single-use items that folks might not know that you can reuse. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we have been reusing our horticultural plastic. Now, eventually we could get to the stage where we would use like a compostable pot or something. That would be like a next step in our progression. But we do have a fair amount of horticultural plastic, and a lot of times this stuff is hard to recycle. But what we do is we will save it throughout the summer months, and then we sterilize it and we reuse it. So like these 3.5-inch pots, we probably used maybe 5 years or more. And what we do is we have like a bleach solution, a 10% bleach. You could do this at your house. But you can see when we save it, it can be pretty dirty. So we try to knock that off in the summer. But if we get busy and don't do it, we thaw this stuff out in the winter. We knock this off into like a pot that we throw into our compost pile. And then we wash this in a bucket of water to just kind of clean it and get it ready. Then we put it in the 10% bleach solution and let it sit a little bit to have contact time with that bleach to kill disease organisms. You know, because we don't want those to be around in our greenhouse setting with its humid temperatures, and it could go rampant through our crops and cause some significant damage. And then we wash it off in just clear water, and then we bag them and we have them all ready for ourselves. So we do a lot of this. This is one of the behind the scenes things we do in January, you know, when it's cold and we have pruning and things that we don't want to quite do yet. We do all the sterilization of the stuff right before we grow all our crops. We grow a lot of stuff from seed here at the Botanical Garden in February. So kind of January is our in-between month after the Garden of Lights before we start the seeds when we do this sterilization.
Awesome. A neat little glimpse behind the scenes there. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. So there's an environmentally friendly purpose to that, but there's also the horticultural purpose, like you mentioned. So
yeah,
cool.
and
Awesome.
then there is one other purpose. If I can get this out here. Oh, saving some cash money, y'all. Yeah, because this horticultural plastic can be pretty expensive, and with oil prices and things, it can fluctuate. So, you know, by reusing it, we don't have to buy it every year. So that does save the Botanical Garden, you know, a decent amount of money too.
Some money. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty sweet transition to talk about how we're reducing our plastic use here. And that's one of the main messages with Wash to Shore. You can see back over here, we've got Stanley the sturgeon out and about displaying his beautiful nature there. So if you haven't been out to the garden yet to see Wash to Shore, make sure you're coming out. And to see that in person, it's much better in person than it is in pictures. Still beautiful in pictures, but much better in person. And educate yourselves on ways that you can reduce your environmental footprint and reduce your plastic use, things like that. So yeah, a lot of good stuff going on here at the garden.
Make sure you get your recycled water bottle.
Yeah, all this is making me so thirsty. This sustainability talk is, whoo, that is something big to talk about here. So I'm just going to take a drink of this water that we sell here at the garden. It's called open water, bottled in aluminum rather than plastic. Whoo.
Yep, it's like Gatorade.
Electrolyte infused.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are a couple of the things that we do here at Green Bay Botanical Garden to be sustainable. There's more information on our website, gbbg.org, or check out our Facebook.